Ross and Rachel were on a break, and now that I know I've pissed most of you guys off, let's get into this video. Okay, so before we begin, spoiler warning for this 27-year-old show. So I'm sure you know all the spoilers that I'm about to give you in the show. If you don't, and you're actually unexperienced friends, clean and untainted, pause this video and go watch it. It'll only take you about 85 hours to complete. To be honest, the best way to experience Friends is as background noise. So just throw it on in the background, grab your Switch and finally build that 5-star island you've been wanting to in Animal Crossing. Even though Friends is one of the most successful TV shows ever created, it's still not without its flaws. Most of these just come from age and when the TV show was made, and some of them were real mistakes that the showrunners, writers and editors made because they don't really know what's going on their own show. Friends is still an institution nonetheless. It's truly massive as a brand, from merch to collector's editions of the box sets of the show, to the iconic soundtrack, and even a recreation of Central Perk, the coffee shop from the show, being recreated in one of those theme parks. Hell, even Google has Easter eggs when you Google each of its characters. My favorite is Ross, just because of how absolutely involving it is. So Friends started in 1994 and finished around 2004 with a reunion in 2021. Being honest with you, I never watched the reunion. It doesn't expand on any of the canon or anything, so I really don't see the point of stopping my 10th rewatch of Planet just to watch a Friends reunion.
わかりました。私も真面目に聞きます。どうか。
But that doesn't mean I don't have a connection to the franchise. Far from it, I actually watched the latest seasons of the show roughly on release, watched a bunch of reruns growing up, I actually watched the final episode live on broadcast night. And I know what you're thinking, isn't a kid watching Friends a bit much?
Yes, it is!
But before we talk about the problems in the show, let's talk about the characters. Both the mains and the sides. So, starting off with the mains, we have Rachel.
I really hope it's you. I hope it's you. Me too.
Rachel is one of the main 6 characters in the show and actually the catalyst for the events in the story. The show starts with her running away from a wedding, seeking the help of Monica, a friend she supposedly hasn't seen in years. She comes off rather spoiled at the start of the show, as though the world owes her an easy life. This is because she grew up rich, her father was a doctor, and she basically had everything handed to her. But she quickly realizes how hard life is when she starts making it on her own.
Who's FICA? Why's he getting all my money?
Monica.
6, 7.
Monica is a strange character, shown as someone that wants to be liked while trying to ignore her type A personality. She takes in Rachel in the first episode of the show, and the two remain roommates for a majority of the show's run. Monica functions as a support for Rachel and the rest of the group, being the one they come to with issues and problems. Surprising, because usually in media, it's the little sisters that goes the big brother file. Monica is the little sister for another character in the show, Ross.
No, I know Ross, but what's it short for? You know, like Rossel or Rostifer? That's Ross. It's pretty.
Ross. Ross is Monica's older brother and quite easily the worst out of the main 6. I'll speak about this a little bit later, but he truly is a poor character. Whiny and mopey.
Hi. This guy says hello, I want to kill myself.
I can see what the writers and the showrunners were going for with this character, letting him be a softer character to most male characters in media at the time, but it just doesn't work. Ross recently got divorced because his wife came out as lesbian and got together with someone else.
Come on, you're single. Have some hormones.
See, but I don't want to be single, okay? I just want to be married again.
Ross and Monica function as the glue that hold this group together, as without them being as close siblings as they are, the main 6 wouldn't really have a reason for them to come together, as they exist in mostly separate spheres. Ross is the only link to Monica, who's the link to the girls, and Ross is the only link to Chandler and subsequently Joey. Chandler.
Sometimes I wish I was a lesbian.
Chandler is Ross's old roommate and functions as a primary comic relief of the show. With his snide and snarky comments towards the other characters in the show, he brings a lot of brevity and a lot of light. In comedies like this, there are jokes that run for a little bit with bigger payoffs, and in between those jokes, there is the things just to keep the show running and little jokes to fill the time. Chandler is excellent at that. Joey. Joey is Chandler's roommate at the beginning of the show and is the only character of the main six that we see after the show's run, because he started his own spin-off series called Joey. Joey originally is the himbo man-war of the group, but slowly morphs into someone that is a shadow of his former self, too stupid to carry on. And this is one of the main problems of the show. Characters becoming the most extreme versions of themselves, and the only one to break this cycle is Pheobe. No, not that one. Okay, so Pheobe is actually a tough character to place in this video, and is the main counterpoint to most of the things I actually say in this video. She mostly functions as the weird girl in the start of the show, something similar to Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter, believing in things like tea leaves and palm readings.
No, no, don't. Stop cleansing my aura.
But she's one of the only characters in the show that are genuinely good and doesn't do anything that purposefully harms the next person in the show. I don't understand really why she is part of the friend group. I get it, she was Monica's roommate before the show started, but if I were, as soon as I moved out, I would have been gone. The group is really toxic and weird with one another, and I really don't understand how more group fights hadn't broken out. Okay, so the sides. There's far too many sides in the Friends show, so I'm just going to talk about those that contribute to the main problems of the show. Gunther. Gunther works at the coffee shop the group hangs out in. He's the most seen side character, and after the main six, he's the most seen character. So I do want to include him onto this list simply because he is a major part of the show. He's played by Michael James Tyler, who actually passed away in 2021. Rest in peace, the original simp. He fell in love with Rachel within the first few episodes and kept it going until the end, only letting her know of his feelings right before she left, and by that point it was too late. Ugly Naked Guy. Ugly Naked Guy is an invisible punching bag character for the show. This was a common occurrence in mid-90s TV shows, especially comedies. It's a character we don't get to see or connect with, so it's a really easy way for the writers to get a target for their jokes. Other examples of this, think of Mrs. Wolowitz from The Big Bang Theory and Maris from Frasier. So why do shows actually put these types of characters in? So for a few reasons. It allows the show to have an extra character without having to pay an actor. It gives an air of mystery about what the character actually looks like. But mostly it's to bully the character without any backlash. As we never see the character, we can't sympathize with them, and our only interaction with them is through the main cast. This manifests in two ways. One, we feel included in the bullying. By witnessing the bullying take place and not being the target of it, we feel safer. Kind of like how there was that kid that brown-nosed the bully so that he wouldn't get picked on as much back in school. Two, we can project our own dislikes onto the character, and it makes us feel above their character in the hierarchy of the show. People tend to place themselves where they would be in the show, and having a character that the audience can go undoubtedly like, I'm better than that character, instantly makes the show a little bit more appealing for them to watch. Janice. Janice is a love interest for Chandler at the beginning of the show and Ross a little bit later, and unironically, she is my favorite character in Friends. She's shown as this brash, stereotypical New Yorker, speaking with an incredibly thick accent and wearing these like fluffy pump coats and having that early 90s, late 80s hairdo. She's one of the only characters to encounter the group and not change the way she is like other characters do throughout the show. I'll speak about that a little later. Carol and Susan. So Carol is Ross's ex-wife and they have gotten divorced at the beginning of the show. Susan is Carol's girlfriend at the beginning of the show and later becomes her wife. They're mostly used in the show just to emasculate Ross or to poke fun at lesbian relationships in general. Carol's actress was swapped out using a method called the other Daryl. This is when a new actor or actress is brought in to play a role that already existed in the show, with no explanation for the switching actors being given. Okay, so now that we have those characters out of the way, let's actually start with this video. The characters of Friends are just generally shitty people and do and say things that wouldn't really fly in real life. The biggest offenders of this is Chandler and Ross, and since the show usually splits them over the A and B stories of each episode, you can't really escape it. It's like everywhere you turn, there they are, just doing something or saying something that wouldn't really fly in real life. I'm going to live with you. 90% of the things I'm going to talk about now, you probably haven't noticed. And this might ruin the show for you, because you might constantly notice it now. But that's okay. You need to find a new show. It's been 27 years. Now, when I say shitty people, what do I mean? In Season 8, Episode 5, a guy named Bob is in Chandler's office has been calling Chandler Toby for so many years that Chandler has given up on ever having to correct him. Chandler figures it doesn't matter much because Bob works on the 6th floor while Chandler works on the 11th. However, when Chandler's boss tells him that he's considering Bob for a promotion to work on the 11th floor with them, Chandler tells his boss that he wouldn't be able to handle it, simply to avoid having to explain his name to the poor man. Bob finds out that someone named Chandler badmouthed him and kept him from the promotion, then enlists his 11th floor friend Toby to help him get revenge. Chandler finds Bob trashing his office and can only help him in order to continue the ruse. Okay, so now this is what I mean. Chandler would rather stifle someone else's career than have an awkward situation with it. Sure, it would be a weird thing to explain, but it's not that big of a deal. But what Chandler did was downright shitty. Another example is Season 4, Episode 7, where Chandler kisses Joey's current girlfriend, Kat. Sure, this did lead to an actual relationship, but hurting a friend by kissing their girlfriend really isn't something that you should be doing. It's something that's really shitty. And to make it worse, the relationship ends when Chandler turns around and accuses Kathy of cheating, something he facilitated for her in the beginning of their relationship, only to turn around and throw it back into her face.
I'm having sex with him?
Oh, come on. It was so obvious. There was no chemistry between you two.
This straight. You're accusing me of cheating on you, and you're insulting my performance.
Naked, touching, kissing.
Acting! Chandler, this is my job. I'm playing a part in a play. How can you not trust me?
Well, you can understand, given how we started.
Oh, wow.
This is labeled as just another quirky thing Chandler does that is a reason that we'll never find love. If you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, this is a really harmful act that could sit with Kathy for an extremely long time, and something that the show just brushes over. And I haven't even spoken about the worst part of this, Chandler's treatment of Helena.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the incomparable Helena Handbasket.
Hello, darlings.
And there's Daddy.
Helena is Chandler's transgender father, who is played by Kathleen Turner. I don't really want to get into the politics of them using a cisgender woman to play a transgender woman, simply because after what I've learned after the whole Dutch girl debate, I am not equipped to deal with that. But all I'm saying is Alexis Delago was an active actress during that time, and it would have fit a lot better in the starlet role, because that's what she was. She was a Vegas starlet and the actress, and it would have just played really, really well.
The only one, Maria Montez.
But even with that, Helena's character was a prolific thing to have on mainstream TV at the time, but it was handled so poorly that it actually leaves a horrible taste in my mouth. The main six constantly use the wrong labels for her and use her as the butt of the joke.
I'm Amanda. Oh, I get it. Duh.
Instead of showing that she's actually happy now, doing something she's passionate about with someone that she cares about, finding a career you love and you're passionate about is a massive part of the show. With Ross being a paleontologist in a job he loves, Rachel finding a voice in fashion after struggling to work her way up the corporate ladder, Monica dealing with the uncertainties that come with being a chef, and Joey chasing his dreams of being an actor. But I guess everyone's allowed to have a career they're passionate about and a career they love, except the trans woman, because she did a raunchy LGBTQ plus performance. The problem here is that it's actually very on brand for Chandler's character to do the things he does, but it's played off very poorly within the show. But what would I do to Chandler's character to fix him? I would do the Barney Sinton.
It's gonna be legendary.
Barney Sinton was a character from How I Met Your Mother that is shallow and vapid and rather rude and insulting like Chandler is, but they redeem him so well in the show. And how did they do this? They play him straight. They made him what he was, but in the little moments they make it so that it shows that he's not a total asshole and he actually cares about his friends. Chandler doesn't have a lot of these moments with the members of the cast. We see a couple here and there, but not enough to redeem him. And then I would put one scene in that would change Chandler. I would set it in the episode where Chandler and Monica get married, where Chandler and Helena sit down and have a conversation. Think of this. It's the morning of his wedding, and Helena sits him down, apologizes for not being around, for not being there for him in his formative years. And she says she's proud of him. Something that Chandler obviously wants, because he's never had that sort of affirmation before. And then we see Chandler's inner child healing. We see him being vulnerable, something we don't see any of in the show. We see him accept that what happened, and now he needs to move past it, and he needs to be a better person because of it. It would make Chandler a more rounded character. We would see the reason why he does what he does. We would see him for who he actually is. And the context for that character would be there. And sure, while that might not redeem the character completely, having a little bit of context does make it easier to swallow. Okay, now that we've fixed Chandler, let's move on to Ross. Ross is supposed to be the good guy of the group. Think Dennis Koofman from I Love You, Beth Cooper, but just with a little subtlety. Now, that was the original idea, but it wasn't executed well. Ross starts off being all nice and shy, but from about the second season, when he actually gets together with Rachel, he becomes possessive and jealous and just a really bad partner.
Wow. Carol really messed you up.
Excuse me?
Yeah, she turned you into this untrusting, crazy, jealous sycophant. Alright, so I don't know what sycophant means, but the rest is right.
So, if you want an example of that, look at the episode, the one where Ross and Rachel takes a break. He tries and fails miserably to have an anniversary at Rachel's work. This is something that no normal person would do, and it's a failure of characterization, sure. But it just shows what a weird character Ross really was, and how the writers actually tried to portray it.
I'm invisible. I'm not here.
Yeah, but I don't...
And when this doesn't work, Ross and Rachel have a fight and take a break. And after which, he immediately goes down and sleeps with Chloe, the girl from the copying place. And this is where the whole we want a break situation came from. Ross and Rachel were broken up, but not in the sense of an official breakup where there has been a time that they decompress and they get their emotions in check. This is more of a breakup after a fight, something that happens after a big explosive fight and usually ends up rolling itself back into what the relationship was before the fight. So it's more of a split than an actual breakup. So while you can argue that, yeah, they weren't necessarily together at that point, it's still a really shitty thing for Ross to do, to just sleep with someone while the thing between him and Rachel was still all tense and crazy. So yeah, while they were on a break, Ross is still in the wrong. The next is the way Ross and the rest of the group treat the fact that Ross's ex-wife is a lesbian.
You never knew she was a lesbian. No, okay? She didn't know. How should I know?
Let me lay some knowledge on you real quick. People can realize they're gay later in life, and that has nothing to do with the partner they are currently with. People fall in love, and nothing that Ross could have done could stop that.
Here's a wacky thought. Let's say you and I give it another shot. No, I know what you're gonna say. You're a lesbian. But what do you say we just put that aside for now, you know? Let's just stick a pin in it, okay? Because we're great together. You know, you can't deny it. And besides, you're carrying my baby.
The idea that Ross is less of a man because his wife left him for another woman is absolutely absurd. And it's actually something that's perpetuated a lot in society, where people are deemed inadequate simply because their partners leave them or cheat on them with someone else. In this situation, it's not about Ross. It's more about Carol discovering her sexuality and realizing that Ross isn't the right person for her than it is about Ross not being able to satisfy her, in whatever way that may be. Writers didn't think of using that angle, didn't think about actually making it realistic and the way people actually act in the modern age. They just looked at the money they were getting and just wrote some garbage. And that's what we get with the whole relationship of Ross and Carol. A bunch of cheap jokes and homophobia. And yeah, Ross is homophobic, not just towards Carol, but in general.
Are you gay?
It's okay. I get that a lot doing what I do. But I am straight. I'm engaged, actually.
Oh.
Her name's Delia.
Oh, that's pretty.
So you're just like a guy who's a nanny. You gotta be at least bi. This is exactly what I'm talking about. What kind of a guy makes delicate French cookies? Huh? They're not even butch, manly cookies.
And he will only accept it in a way that he can fetishize it. And fixing Ross is actually rather simple. Let the person who's writing him actually know how real people act. And let someone read it. And let someone that knows manipulation tactics and what the telltale signs are read it. And make sure you're not actually putting that in one of your major characters in your show. It's not that difficult. A good example of a character that they should have studied leading up to the creation of Ross is Fraser Crane and his brother Niles Crane. They are very similar characters, intellectuals and softer, and something that would be really great if done well, and Ross wasn't done well. And that's how I would fix him. Write him more like Niles or Fraser Crane from Frasier. Have his relationship run like Niles and Daphne. Once Ross and Rachel get together, have him treat her properly and actually just have a good stable relationship throughout the show, and that would have actually done so much for the show, for the character of Ross, for the relationship, and it wouldn't have made Ross so unlikable now. Sure, we wouldn't have a lot of situations like the we were on a break and the absolutely fucked marriage with Emily, but we would have had a better Ross character. Now let's talk about something that happens multiple times throughout the show, and it's actually really weird, and it also just gets completely brushed over. This is actually something our mom noticed first, and when she told me, I just straight up couldn't get it out of my head. The characters in the show have an awful habit of changing the people they are with only to leave them afterwards because of what they changed into. Because what they changed into is something that they no longer wanted. An amazing example, and one of the first examples of this, is Fun Bobby. Fun Bobby is a character that was introduced as Monica's on-again, off-again relationship within the first couple of episodes of the show.
Well, I know this jacket. This is Fun Bobby's jacket. Where is he? What? He's here, isn't he?
Maybe.
Don't toy with me. Get away! Fun Bobby!
Hey! Whoa, hey, you've been working out, huh?
Not at all. I love this guy.
He's shown in the initial scene of meeting him, he's shown as an extremely happy and charismatic guy. But in the same scene where he was introduced, we also find out that he might have a drinking problem.
So he drank a lot tonight.
Yeah, but, you know, now that I think about it, I don't think I've ever seen Fun Bobby without a drink in his hand.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you know, did you notice how he always starts his stories with, okay, I was so wasted, or, oh, we were so bombed, or, oh, whoa, so I wake up and I'm in this dumpster in Connecticut.
Alcoholism and addiction is an extremely serious disease that affects many people throughout the world. From a study done by the World Health Organization in 2018, it shows that 3 million deaths every year is the result of harmful alcohol use. This represents 5.3% of all deaths in the year. So, knowing this, Monica makes him give up alcoholism and start sobriety, which he does. But when he does, he's no longer Fun Bobby. He goes through the stages of alcohol withdrawal, and Monica doesn't like that, and she leaves him because of it. And this is the same thing that happens with Eddie. He's a quiet guy, and once Chandler gets him talking, Chandler no longer wants him around anymore. Sure, he was a little bit weird, but we wouldn't have known this if Chandler just didn't engage with the character.
Goodbye, you fruit-drying psychopath.
And the same with Paul Stevens. Rachel wants him to be more emotionally vulnerable, and when he does this, she leaves him. The same with Richard Burke. Monica changes his mind about not wanting kids, only to turn around and leave him when he says that he's willing to have kids for her.
Okay, I'll do it.
You'll do what?
If kids is what it takes to be with you, then kids it is.
Oh my God.
If I have to, I'll do it all again. I'll do the 4 o'clock feeding thing. I'll go to the PTA meetings. I'll coach the soccer team.
But I don't want to have one with someone who doesn't really want to have one.
So I'm not saying your characters can't do questionable things in the context of the story. And all I'm saying is, this is something big, and it continuously happens without a diegetic reason in the story for it. So this is a tale of a lazy writer that doesn't actually know how to deal with these situations. They just drops in and runs. How would you fix this? You just wouldn't put it in the show. None of these events affect the main plot in any meaningful way. So removing it isn't too difficult or even noticeable. So remove it and in its place, place some real character building, focusing on the interactions between the main six that build their friendship, like the reasons they are really friends. Things like when Ross buys Phoebe a bike, or when Phoebe breaks Ross's steadfastness view of evolution, or when Rachel and Joey go out sailing and it shows that Rachel might be a lot more like her father than she initially thought.
I'm sorry if you thought that was mean, but I gotta tell you something. That was not mean. Okay, my father is mean. He used to yell at me all the time on the boat. I mean, it was horrible. I was just being a really good teacher.
Does a good teacher say put down the beer, Pinhead?
Oh, we just went over this.
Oh, you know that when we did that was when that bird was flying overhead with the fish in his mouth. Did you see it? It was gross.
No, all right, I did not see the bird. I did not see the fish. I did not see the piece of styrofoam that was shaped like Mike Tyson. I did not, because I was trying to teach you how to sail a boat, which obviously is an impossible thing to do.
All right, that's it. You're yelling and I don't see you taking your top off. I quit!
What do you mean you quit? You can't quit!
Why not?
Because you're not finished yet and I won't have it! Greens do not quit!
Greens? I'm a Tribbiani and Tribbiani's quit.
Oh my God, wait, did I just said greens don't quit, didn't I? Did I just say greens don't quit?
Yes, yes!
Oh,
you did and you're still yelling at me.
No, I'm not yelling at you. I'm just yelling near you. Oh God, Joey, oh, I'm my father. Oh my God, this is horrible.
It's little moments like this that build a show, and it shows that these are real characters instead of just vehicles for the show. The dumbing down of a character is something that happens in a lot of shows. Usually the character that is not smart or not intellectual or not refined is slowly but surely dumbed down into something that is absolutely ridiculous and leaves the audience to think, how can someone this stupid exist? The perfect example of this is London Tipton from the Sweet Life series. London started out as a character that's just generally bad at school. Not stupid necessarily, but just someone whose interests didn't align with academics, opting to focus more on fashion and clothing and makeup and social circles and things like that. But this did not hold up when the show transitioned into its second part called Sweet Life on Deck. When this started, London explicably became a total brainlet that was just so stupid that I couldn't believe that they did this to the character. She became a complete moron compared to her part 1 counterpart, which was just not interested in school. Not stupid, but not academic. Something similar happened to Joey. Joey started out as someone that was rather simple-minded, not necessarily engaging in the intellectual side of life. It's up to him for the simple pleasures in life: beer, baseball, baby chickens. And that's fine. He was sort of the muscle of the group, but in later seasons, Joey is just outright stupid. And that's not what this character is. The lazy writing got even lazier, resulting in Joey becoming a shadow of his former self. Something that a lot of his fans lamented. Fixing Joey and making him go back to the way he was in season 1 and season 2 would solve so much of the show's writing problems. Sure, it might have been a little bit more difficult and more involving on the part of the writers, but it would have elevated the show and kept a consistent tone with the character. And then there's the plotter. Any show that's run this long is guaranteed to have a couple of inconsistencies, right? Not necessarily. It doesn't have to be that way. Robin Hobb has been writing a book series for 13 books now and hasn't had as many slip-ups than this show did in its first season. Firstly, Ross's birthday changes in the show. This is a massive slip-up and shows the lack of care from the writers. The thing is, the show had a massive team behind it. At least one person editing, doing color grading, doing something on the show could have picked it up, especially if they actually engaged with what they were doing. Like, it's not hard to pick up something as major as a birth date change. The thing is that the show had a huge team behind it. At least one person in the show must have been a massive fan. The mistake still made it into the final cut. Another thing is the ages of the cast is very inconsistent. Joey is shown as the baby of the group right at the beginning, but suddenly his 31st birthday is before Rachel's. It just doesn't make sense. This could have been solved with character sheets. So some advice I got from a writing teacher while I was trying to be a novelist is, when you create characters, write out a D&D character sheet of all the details you need for this character. any details you need to build the story. Background, date of birth, things like that. This keeps the character a little bit more consistent, especially with the things that they are able to do in the show. For example, Phoebe doesn't know what a sous chef is in one of the episodes, but it turns out near the end, Phoebe knew how to speak French all along, and that's a very big inconsistency. And this would solve a lot of weird changes that happened throughout the show, like the number on Monica's door changing, Rachel being pregnant for almost a year, Rachel and Chandler being introduced like they never met, even though they know each other very well at this point.
I'm in college, I'm in a band.
Yeah, okay.
The amount of siblings Joey has changing, and that's not even everything. You can find hundreds of articles online just listing all of these problems, and they are so extensive, and it's absolutely crazy. I don't know how the inconsistencies could get this bad on such a major show. And here's my final point in this video: the laugh track. I fucking hate laugh tracks. I've never come across a show that uses a laugh track well ever. It just cheapens the whole show. So laugh tracks are usually used to cue laughter from the audience, but it also runs a blank time for the watcher to laugh but not miss the next part of what's being said. So just a little blocking time that is filled with a laugh track. But it is so grating in the show. It's nowhere near as bad as something like The Big Bang Theory, but it's still incredibly annoying. So how would I fix this? I would not play the laugh track as often. Like, the laugh track maybe needs to go off once every 2.5 minutes. Like, when the joke is really, really funny, put the laugh track in. You don't have to put the laugh track in for every joke, because everyone's taste is different and some people will go ignoring the joke. So put it in for the major jokes that you actually really need it for. I think the reason it's so annoying is that it's used to cover the bad writing of the show. So they just run a laugh track. They think that the unfunny joke is suddenly funny again. When the characters insult one another, the laugh track is played so that the audience forgets that what they said was actually really, really shitty and horrible. Probably wouldn't be able to fly in the real world, so they use the laugh track to cover that up. There's edits of the show online without the laugh track, and the show becomes really weird and dark, mostly because without the vibrant lighting and the laugh tracks setting off something in your brain every 5 seconds, your brain can actually process what's going on the screen, and it doesn't like it. Your brain knows that something's wrong with the Friends show. The same way your brain knows that there's something wrong in a horror show. But Friends tricked you into thinking it's a comedy. That's it for this video. I took really long writing the script because I actually had to go back and watch a bunch of episodes of Friends. And the video is this long because I'm a sellout trying to get my watch time up so that Susan can take me out of what is YouTube's equivalent of ELOL. Thank you, have a good day, and maybe you could do something with your fucking life.